Hello, from the safety of my living room. This is not my living room. From the safety of this living room, we are going to watch another episode of I Shouldn't Be Alive. And look at these thumbnails, always great. Definitely make me click on them. Maybe one day my thumbnails will be on this level. Location, Solomon Islands, South Pacific. As an American, I'm going to include a map right here because the South Pacific, I don't know where that is. I can imagine it is south of where I am right now. 35-year-old Melissa is from Toronto, Canada. She's tired of the city life and tired of her job as a hotel manager. I cannot imagine being a hotel manager, dealing with people.
I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I was really wanting to make a change in my life.
Melissa gets a job with David, who is an oceanic researcher. He has, 30 years experience at this time with the ocean, studying the ocean, as well as diving and swimming. They're going to see an oceanic volcano called Kavachi. There's 4 people going, Melissa, David, and then 2 people staying on the boat to kind of man the boat. So Melissa expresses some trepidation about sharks, and David tells her, oh, you have nothing to worry about it, don't worry about that. And then in his interview to camera, David tells us,
I had heard from the local fishermen that there was a couple big sharks out here, big hammerheads.
David decides to not mention anything to Melissa, which I can understand, right? He knows that she's nervous about it, so he's not going to bring it up. But I think the flip side is like maybe he should have told her so she could have made an informed decision. The plan is that the boat will stay where it is and the 2 will go swimming and, snorkeling, diving for 30 minutes. They do that. They have a jolly time. Their heads pop up out of the water. They intended to pop up, right next to the boat. But, they start waving their arms and yelling to get the attention of the 2 people on the boat who were looking for them. But unfortunately, the people on the boat can't see them, and they also can't hear them because of the motor of the boat. So the boat starts running low on gas, and it leaves, presumably to get more gas and come back. What's fun about these episodes being on YouTube is you can read through the comments and learn a lot from, presumably self-prescribed experts or actual experts, I'm not sure. But anyway, some of the comments are saying that this situation is unusual and it really shouldn't have happened, right? If David is such an expert, there should have been some kind of backup plan for something to go wrong, for something like this to happen. So either some kind of GPS tracking device, which maybe it was too expensive at that time, so maybe that's why he didn't have one, but at least some kind of like buoy that would have served as like a visual indicator of their location if someone was looking for them, or even something reflective, right? They could have been like a beacon.
All they can do is pray for rescue.
I still had faith that they would come back, ride over the waves like heroes and pluck us out of the water. But they didn't.
We are absolutely alone, miles away from land.
Melissa suggests, I see the land in front of me, let's just swim for it. And the narrator tells us it's a 20-mile swim, which is doable. David says, no, like the boat knows the general direction of where they dropped us off, so they're gonna come back and then the boat will follow the current, which would lead to us, so let's stay where we are.
I think at that point, a bit of anger was coming in. He should have known better. How could we be in this situation?
Please don't tell me to calm down. We're in the middle of the ocean. You've lost that boat!
I think I have the right to vent here. I won't say what I said, but I swore a little bit.
Melissa's reacting as one might expect. She had a little bit of a dummy spit and she was swearing profusely. She's relying on me to ensure that everything went smoothly. And at that stage, I'd shot myself in the foot big time.
Dummy spit. Never heard of this expression. I don't think I'm going to use it. It sounds a little mean. It's established that since they're at the top of the water, that they will look like prey kind of swimming around. So David says, let's keep our movements very limited. The boat makes it to shore and they raise the alarm. Melissa decides they have to try and swim for it. David agrees. He keeps his face down, with his mask to kind of keep an eye out. And they, nice and easy, without making too much movement, start swimming. Suddenly they're attacked by jellyfish, which still sounds incredibly painful. They're like swimming through tons and tons of jellyfish, getting stung.
Are you okay to go on?
Yeah.
Desperate to escape the jellyfish, the divers splashed around on the surface. They've broken David's golden rule and become a magnet for predators.
And I see this little duck coming. It was coming straight at me from the depths, literally, from what I could see, straight at my face. It was this huge, ugly barracuda, probably 5.5 feet. All he has to do is hit me in my hand, my arm, my leg. If I start bleeding, I've got another major problem. I've got a problem with sharks. I needed something to ram and protect us. That was the first thing to use.
And David smacks it with his camera, and that works. Also, I thought a barracuda was like a land snake, like a type of snake. Not like a fish snake, like a land snake. So that, I learned something. Every day I learned something.
With daylight fading, the search parties have no choice but to return to the island. They've spent over 6 hours searching for the missing divers. They'll start again at first light, but everyone knows that by then, the odds are they'll be looking for dead bodies.
I didn't understand why they didn't come back for us. I was hurt. How could this be?
Scared of the dark, scared of the ocean. So I can't even imagine being in this situation.
With night coming, that was a total different scenario because a lot of animals come up to the surface and feed at nighttime. I found myself thinking we were there to get eaten.
David's brother Owen learns of what has happened.
We just lost our younger sister with cancer about 4 or 5 months previous. My first thought was my 90-year-old mother, whether she could handle the shock of possibly having lost another of her children. So that was very traumatic in that regard.
And he hops on a boat, not a boat, he hops on a plane from Australia to the islands to kind of organize some kind of rescue mission to get his brother back. The pair are still swimming when they notice some kind of glowing happening.
The mysterious light is caused by microscopic plankton in the water. Any sudden movement makes them glow.
Stop swimming because it's not safe. They're just kind of notifying everything in the ocean every time they move and the water glows. They stop swimming. It's very cold when they're just treading water there. Melissa realizes she's lost her mask at some point. And YouTube comments are telling me if you're ever in the ocean, you're always supposed to put your mask around your neck if you're not wearing it. Never put it like on your head, top of your head, or on your arm because you can lose it. So that's, an important tip. Melissa feels a bump against her leg, which must have been the most terrifying feeling. If you know anything about shark attacks, sharks often bump against their prey to help identify what it is, as well as to see what the reaction will be.
Your fear is unbelievable.
But nothing comes of this bump, so if it was a shark, it just keeps going, or maybe it wasn't a shark after all. We'll never know. The pair talk about the darkest moment of this whole experience.
Every minute that we're out there, you become less convinced that we're going to get out of it. Part of what we went through was discussing what we pass on if I don't survive. Tell my kids I love them. And my family. It's scary. Oh.
It was really important for me that if he were to survive, I wanted him to tell my mom and dad that they were good parents. He started crying and he said, "You're gonna live to be very old. You're gonna have children." And there was one point where I thought maybe David can just hold me under. And I couldn't allow myself to die that way. I couldn't do that to my family. I couldn't dishonor them. I couldn't do it. I gotta die trying. I'm not gonna lay here anymore.
Gotta swim.
I think I get what she means. You have to at least try. If you die trying, that's better than just giving up, even though giving up is probably what you want to do in that moment.
So just go really slow. And so we kicked. And we didn't stop kicking. After living through that darkness and then seeing the light, it just changed. It just gave me something I didn't have. I could actually see for the first time the land. I could see that it was actually tangible.
Oh, you're close.
Melissa's feeling good, seeing the sun come up. David, on the other hand, he kind of let Melissa rest, and he's been up the whole time trying to stay alert of what's happening around them. So he's exhausted. He's also quite a bit older, I think like 20 years older than Melissa. It's been affecting his body maybe a bit more.
David, you okay? You all right?
Seeing him like that scared me a lot. I remember thinking, what if he drowns?
David's
There's
brother
no official
Owen
search and
hires
rescue.
a helicopter.
There is a
It's a
helicopter
private
service,
service,
but it's a
which means he
private
has to pay for it.
I had no idea what the currency in the Solomons was, and I certainly didn't have a suitcase full of whatever currency they would accept.
This do? That'll be fine. 1 minute.
So the good old plastic came in handy, and it worked.
And I can't imagine trying to stay calm in this situation.
They're still 6 miles from land, and the tropical sun is beating down on them relentlessly.
I was so grateful the sun came up. But it was also a blessing and a curse because I could feel the side of my face burning. That's really when I realized he was fading. He wasn't making any sense.
I was getting closer to almost total exhaustion, and all of a sudden, we finally heard it. It's a helicopter! That wakes you up fast.
It's the helicopter chartered by David's brother. Rescue is finally in sight.
Oh, it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
It was amazing, and here it comes, and we waved and did all the right things. But we're wearing suits that are black and blue. We don't stick out.
The helicopter is above them, but it can't see them. David and Melissa just blend in with the ocean. So the helicopter turns and leaves them. And, I get crushed, right? But they decide to keep swimming because that's literally their only option.
I didn't totally mention to Melissa at that stage that I believe the greatest fear we're going to have is that last bit, right in close to the shore, because it's an area I wanted to fish, because there's so much sea life there, including your upper major predators.
But what David doesn't know is that his fins have been chafing his ankles. He's now bleeding profusely. Hammerhead sharks can smell one drop of blood in a million drops of seawater.
I remember thinking, what's that piece of plastic sticking out of the water? It looks like a sailboat's on its end, or almost like a kayak sticking straight up out of the water.
Oh, David! David! I saw a shark.
What?
I saw a fin.
That woke me up. I said, did it sort of look like this? It was a dorsal fin of a hammerhead shark.
I'd never seen anything like this. It was huge.
This was my greatest fear. You're just hoping that that shark isn't hungry. With all the bad things that have happened, a little bit of good luck would be nice right now. The hardest problem is that you know it's still nearby. You're still waiting in the back of your mind, it's going to sneak up on you.
The divers make a last desperate attempt to reach land.
They're close to land now, which is a big yeehaw for me. Ooh.
This wasn't a sandy beach that we would float up to gently. This was an extremely pitted, jagged, horribly craggy shoreline.
Which is like, come on, can they just get one more break, please?
It's not going to take much to hurt ourselves badly. The odds were that we weren't going to survive.
Ready?
I happened to turn left, and I don't know why I turned left and looked.
And I heard him say, "I'll be damned. There's a boat. It couldn't have been at a more beautiful time.
That must be the best feeling in the whole world. They swam 20 miles. They, survived all of these elements. Everything was against them. And I can't imagine being pulled out of the water. At that moment, you're safe. Even just seeing the boat, I don't think you'd feel safe until you're physically holding on to someone pulling you out of the water.
I kept thinking, I was just lost at sea. I was just lost at sea for 26 hours. The sharks didn't eat us. We didn't die. I'm alive.
There was my brother Owen. Greatest sight in the world.
I didn't know whether to hug him or belt him over the head. I really didn't.
God, David, what have you done now?
But he's a bit sunburned, so I didn't want to give him too big a slap. I gave him a hug instead.
I'm Owen.
I said, you do this again, boy, and you're on your own. I'm not flying halfway around the world to save your ass.
David still lives in the Solomon Islands and dives regularly. But Melissa returned home and hasn't done an open water dive since. The two of them remain good friends.
I'm glad that she doesn't seem to hold any resentment or anger towards David, who kind of put her in this situation since he was the expert. All right, let's read a few of the comments. This is like my favorite part about YouTube, is reading the comments. Stuart Wood says, I'm not sure how factual this is, but as someone who makes their living diving in the ocean, I can tell you that the entire dive was a monumental sea. Diving in an exposed area like that without a DSMB, daylight, signaling mirror, or even an EPIRB isn't wise. The boat should never have left the scene, but it didn't have a radio, so I guess they had no choice. The shark stuff is a little overblown, although I know one guy who was presumed to have been taken by a tiger shark in Cocos. That's some good insight. Rose Selby says, I wouldn't have to worry about getting eaten alive because I would have had a heart attack as soon as I knew I was stranded, which I agree with that sentiment.